In this video, let us look at the built-in Arrays.asList method. Arrays.asList method. So in order to use that, we need to import java.util.arrays. And in this example, we'll be using a list. So I'm also importing java.util.list. So the way it works is we could give a variety of inputs to this asList method, arrays.asList method. In this example, we are giving a series of 5 int values, and then they automatically get converted into the list of integer objects. And when I run this particular program, you will see that these series of values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are now converted into a list of integer objects named by this variable numbers. Let's take a look at the size of the list that is created as a result of arrays.asList method execution. So I'm going to be invoking the size built-in method over the list object numbers.size. So you can see that the size of the list is 5. Let's comment this out and look at it. Basically what we are looking at this point is the asList method accepts variety of inputs. That's what we are looking at. So let's comment the line of code that we executed just now, and then provide a different type of input to the asList method. Now this time we are giving a string hello, and then that gets converted into a list item. So now when we print system.out.single, it's a single input value we are giving, and we would see hello getting printed like this. Now let's take a look at the size of the resulting list. Okay, it's not numbers, it's single. Saving it, yeah, it's 1. So it created one element inside the single list that's created as a result of the execution of the arrays.asList method. Now let's look at creating an empty list here. Very simple. We don't just provide any input and automatically arrays.asList creates an empty list of string. It's important to remember it creates a list of type string. Okay, so let's execute this and see. So as you can see, the list doesn't have any values because we have not provided any input values like we did in previous examples. Okay, now these are some examples that illustrate the type of inputs we can give to the asList method. Now let's look at some of the characteristics of the list that is created as a result of the execution of the asList method. The number one and the most important one is the fact that the list that is created is fixed. You cannot add elements to the resulting list object. Now let me comment this out. Okay, so what we are trying to do is we are creating a list of integer objects by providing 3 integer values 1, 2 and 3, and we are using the asList method. and after that we are displaying the values of the list. Let's execute and see. Now we will see as expected 1, 2 and 3. Let's try to add another element to it. What we said was one of the key characteristics of the asList method is that the resulting list object is fixed in its size. We cannot add elements to it or remove elements from it, okay, but we can modify it. Okay, let's uncomment this line. Here we are trying to add another element to the list. It should result in an exception. As expected, it says unsupported operation exception because like I said, the list object is fixed in size, so we cannot add elements to it. So let's comment that line out, and then let's try to change if that is allowed. Okay, we are trying to change the value of the first element. We are giving the index equal to 0 and the value we are setting is 10. We are using the set method. It's a built-in method, and this particular operation is allowed because we are not changing the size of the list. Let's take a look. Now earlier it was 1, now it is 10, the value at index 0. Okay, now the other one is, here is another interesting observation that one could make while working with the asList method. Here we are taking an array of primitive integers, int values. So nums is an array of primitive data type int. It is not an object. Int is different from integer, which is an object. Both are built into the Java language, but in this case we are creating an array of int values called nums, and we are supplying that as input parameter to the asList method. Okay, what it does, it creates a single entry in the resulting list object. So the list object will have only one entry. Let's take a look at it. Okay, the size of the resulting list object is 1, and we would see something like this, which is nothing but the object ID. So what is stored at location 0? We are trying to print system.out.println list.get 0. So there is only one entry in the list object, and which is located at index 0. We are trying to fetch the value that is contained in that location and trying to print it, and what we are getting is an object ID. That means whenever we provide a primitive data type array as input, it creates a single entry in the resulting list object, and that entry will be an object. So what we have here is not 1 or 2 or 3, which is at the location 0 of the resulting list object, but it is an object that contains values 1, 2 and 3. Okay, now how do we get 1, 2 and 3 to be at locations 0, 1 and 2? How do we do that? In that case, we need to use integer objects. Here in this case, nums is not an array of primitive int type, but it is an array of integer objects, and we are giving similar values 1, 2 and 3 like we did in the previous example. Now we are once again supplying the nums array as input to the asList method. The difference you will see is that unlike the previous example where the list had int type array as its data type. In this case, it contains integer as the data type that's contained within the list object. When we print list, you will get 1, 2, 3 instead of getting the object ID. Let's take a look at it. So this is how you will convert this array of integers into a list of integers. I'll be using AsList as part of solving some of these HackerRank and other programming challenges videos. So I think this should be an introduction to the AsList method. Thank you so much.